before concert time to hear me yammer at you for a few minutes about what you're going to hear. Normally, if you've come to any of these pre-concert talks, more than just introducing you to the pieces or giving you some background, I feel as an artist that it's important to let you know, because you're just as much of a performance experience as we are, a bit of the thought process that went behind how these pieces became a program, and why they spoke to me as a conductor, and how they speak to the chorus as performers, and hopefully what we would like for you to get from it. But actually, it's completely okay that you don't get that. Right? So the theme for this concert, is, as you see in your programs, is Cries of War, Hopes for Peace. Regardless of whether the piece is written 200 years ago or 100 years ago or 50 years ago, when I think about choosing repertoire, particularly for a community organization like this, as well as when I try to recitalize or concertize as a soloist, it's important to me to find a piece that's speaking to what the zeitgeist is, the current zeitgeist is. And a large piece of that, talking to Michaela, who was the reporter for the Bennington Banner, some things became clarified for me. Interviews have a way of doing that. And I realized that aside from the Handel and the Slavonic pieces that the Choral Society did 2 Decembers ago, when we did the Majesty of Music, almost every piece, or actually every piece aside from those, are from the 20th century. Not a single piece that had its premiere before 1911, okay? So all the music that we've done this last 2 seasons have been music of the last 120 years. Another interesting thing, as I was sort of piecing all of these ideas together, and none of you, I'm sure, would use this as a default source of information, but I found it interesting that if you researched all of the decades, if you looked up 1890s, 1900s, 1910, 20s, 30s, all the way up into the 2000s and into 2010s, on Wikipedia, you get a little blurb summary, and then the next thing that you see is politics and wars. And then you have a list of all the military conflicts that have happened during each decade. It's like the primary thing you look at. Okay, and in 1980, at the surge of massive globalization, there's a small little subcategory that appears after that called terrorist attacks. It's sobering to think about that. You know, you think about social history and social advances, and that comes quite a bit down the page. The first thing you see is who's had a conflict with whom, what wars were waged, and what were the results of those conflicts. After being sort of thrown back by that realization, I looked at when these pieces, which spoke to me pretty immediately, when they were composed and premiered. So the Vaughan Williams and the Barber actually come from the same year, 1936. The Barber's premiere as the Adagio for strings happened 2 years later in a recording session with Arturo Toscanini. But it was originally written, it's the second movement of his string quartet, Opus number 11. He expanded it to be a larger work for a fuller string orchestra, and it stands on its own. It's probably arguably the most famous instrumental piece Samuel Barber wrote. The Bernstein and the Vaughan Williams were written in sort of in-between time. So the Vaughan Williams, 1936, the Bernstein, 1965, where I would say the spawning point were these major anniversaries for essentially performing arts organizations. Actually, the Huddersfield Choral Society in England was the Vaughan Williams. It was a major anniversary for them. And it was the Chichester Festival in England for the Chichester Psalms. It didn't premiere first, the Chichester Psalms didn't premiere first in England. There was a performance in July of that year with the New York Philharmonic that Bernstein conducted, and then it wasn't until October of that year that the actual festival for which the piece was written premiered the piece. 1936 was a remarkable year. One, it's between the First and the Second World War. But on November 1st, 1936, was a day when there was a huge assembly in Milan, and Benito Mussolini coined the term Axis for the Axis powers. So he said in that speech that Italy and Germany are the axis around which all the other European forces can be bound. Okay? It's just it's interesting to examine what is going on in the minds of, well, I mean, despite whether it is for good or for evil, what world leaders are thinking and what societies are thinking, even in between major massive conflicts. We didn't know, I found that there's some synchronicity that seems to be happening with my own personal programming, and I don't have any connection to the Psychic Friends hotline at all. That over the last couple of years, in my own sense of finding pieces that spoke to me and I felt had something to say to us as humans in this time, that it seemed to happen that there were, sadly, major societal atrocities that happened in between. There was a pretty large pretty large undertaking. It was an artist residency of my choir in Philadelphia, the Germantown Concert Chorus, that came up in January of 2015 to do an MLK concert. I planned that almost a year in advance, and we were doing music of African American composers, where one of the central pieces was this piece for Negro chorus, white chorus, contralto, soloist, and narrator, and orchestra called And They Lynched Him on a Tree. We didn't know that during that summer would be the Trayvon Martin, Eric Gardner, that those then gave more gravitas to the work that we were preparing to do together. When we did Music of the French Cathedrals, the centerpiece of which was the Fauré Requiem, in December, we didn't know when we planned in June, July, that there would be the atrocities in France. But there's something not just chilling about that, but surprisingly accurate about the fact that no matter how far apart we are geographically, we're all feeling the same thing. Which is why the Vaughan Williams in particular spoke to me as a conductor. I don't think there's any piece written using Walt Whitman texts and prophets or lesser prophets of the Old Testament, save Jeremiah. What I think would ever call Jeremiah lesser. And a John Bright excerpt that takes this idea of the very human impact of war and tries to see it, especially through the Walt Whitman texts, from the viewpoint that it affects everyone in a deleterious fashion. That everyone, whether you're on the winning side or the losing side of the conflict, is negatively affected by the carnage. The Walt Whitman texts, well, let me back up. The soprano soloist sings, of course, the title of the piece, Dona nobis pacem, grant us peace. It takes various forms. Sometimes it seems like it's hanging in the ether. Sometimes it's a cry, a wail over the rest of the choir and the instruments. But the Walt Whitman texts are so powerful, and Vaughan Williams has a way of dealing with Whitman as a composer and dealing with Whitman as a poet that's particularly strong. There's another piece called Toward the Unknown Region that Vaughan Williams wrote. Darest thou now, O soul, walk thou with me toward the unknown region, where neither path is for the feet, nor any lamp, right? Very tactile texts. The two movements that spoke the most to me are the third movement, which is called Reconciliation, and the fourth movement, which is probably the most famous movement of the piece, the Dirge for Two Veterans. Reconciliation, sung today by our tenor soloist, describes a man you could assume he's on the winning side of the conflict, face to face with the corpse of his enemy. A man divine as myself, and he bends over to kiss his face. The Dirge for Two Veterans describes basically a procession with bugles and drums, and being a bystander, hearing it come from far away, passing, and going to a new-made double grave for a father and his son, who have both been lost in the conflict. After that, though, after a mishmash of prophetic texts, we are given some hope by a familiar prophetic text: nation shall not lift up a sword against nation, nor shall they study war anymore. Most of us have probably encountered that. If you're, if you are like a lectionary buff like I am, you've encountered that numerous times. But Vaughan Williams ends the piece in a just a deeply affecting way. After all of this, it's very joyful. It's an ode to the hope for peace. But the choir and the soprano soloist are alone at the end. And you only hear the soprano's sole voice: peace, peace, peace. It's an unanswered question. The Barber, I felt, was an appropriate piece without chorus to give us a sort of a greater context. If you look, Barber, the Adagio for Strings, it's an arresting piece, but it's used for when societies are marking a great loss. It's been used countless times for the death of major diplomats, heads of state, and for commemorations of atrocities. Within the first month after 9/11 happened, 10 American symphony orchestras played it. And then worldwide, at the 10th anniversary of 9/11, it was, you can check the data, but it's true, it was probably the most featured piece of symphony orchestras. There's something about starting from one B flat, having an undulating chant-like melody, which, by the way, Barber reset for chorus as an Agnus Dei later, and then it just returns and returns and returns. It's a meditation in sound. There's a hopefulness but there's grief. The Bernstein, Bernstein being one of the greatest conductors, I mean, he's the triple threat, right? He's the conductor, composer, teacher. He knew, being the Mahler scholar that he was, that his music was going to definitely take on a different context or a new context long after he was gone. And I believe that in this sense, and in the context of our concert, it does just that. But not by out of left field. The text that he uses, obviously song text, starts with Ura Hanavel, essentially, wake up! He uses that pattern, that motif, Ura Hanavel, about 4 times, major 4 times throughout the piece. At the very beginning, at the end of the first movement, at the beginning of the third movement, and at the end of the third movement. In the middle of the piece, the second movement, where our lovely 2 trebles will be singing, essentially standing in the place of the boy David, singing the 23rd Psalm, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. After this pastoral, and even Bernstein says blissfully ignorant, slow and beautiful melody, it's interrupted by a savage, angular, musical line handed back and forth between the basses and the tenors, which is Psalm 2. Why do the nations so furiously rage together? They're overlapped. And then out of that we hear young David sing again. Thou preparest a table for me in the presence of mine enemies. After that, as that closes out, we hear very softly echoes of that conflict, and then a loud to close this second movement. To me, that is the impact. It could be seen as the impact of a bomb. It's so shocking. You don't expect it. But then the beginning of the third movement starts with Ura Hanevel in the strings and the piano. In searing discord. So what are we waking up to? After the atrocity has happened, what do we see when we wake up? There's confusion, there's doubt, there's grief, there's loss. But then the men enter with yet another song about the humility of the human spirit. Sometimes feeling like you can't do anything about it, but yet there is that hope that matters will be better. But in contrast to how Vaughan Williams leaves an unanswered question, Bernstein at the end offers his own form of an answer. It's soft, sung a cappella by the choir, but it's a challenge. Kine mato humanayim, shevet achim gam yachad. How beautiful, how blessed it is when brethren dwell together in unity. And as they hold the final amen, we hear Ura ha ne vel. It is our wake-up call. So, I've laid a lot on you. But this is my invitation on behalf of all the performers you see and you will hear in front of you in just a few moments. that you journey with us through this meditation on our lives of common unity, community. That you think, allow the music to take you, allow the text to take you to those places where you have experienced loss, the conflicts you've seen. Many of you, I'm sure, have seen and lived through many more conflicts on the world stage than I've been around for. Allow yourselves to enter into that space, and then allow the spirits of the composers, rendered through the voices and the sounds on the stage, to show you and to touch you with their hope. And that hope, born from them, transferred by us to you, can carry you from this place. And maybe in some small way, we can bring into reality the everlasting hope for peace. Thank you.
I also want to say that these concerts are not possible without the generous support of our many donors. In particular, I would like to thank our two corporate sponsors, the Bank of Bennington and People's United Bank. Okay, before I introduce formally our pianist, I want to remind you to make sure your cell phones are turned off, and that I hope you enjoy the program. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Patrick James Staples from the Long Trail School, who will be performing Rachmaninoff's Prelude No. 5 in G minor. Please welcome.
Into the solemn church and stand in the congregation. lintel and the two side posts of our door, that he may spare and pass on. Shall be greater
so much. And now, a brief intermission. so much for joining us. It's very hard to do these three pieces without being immensely sort of moved from within yourself out. I want to give another round of applause to Patrick, if he's still here, for a beautiful performance. First thing, many of you sitting out there, some of you may have sung before, some of you may have not sung in a very long time, some of you sing recently in other places. Some of you, a very long time ago, may have heard someone say, "Why are you singing?" But in this choral society, know that you are welcome. And I'm not just saying that, they will tell you. You are welcome. So if you feel at all inspired to challenge yourself to become a part of this, know you have a place. We are here for that. It is our mission. It is my mission. Please come. If not, please continue to support the arts, support us, support Sage City Symphony, support Castle Theater, all of these places in your community which keep the arts alive. One of the things we've seen in the zeitgeist is that it's up to us to do it. We can't wait for someone else to foot the bill or to start it off. We've got to do this important work ourselves. Thank you so much. Thank you. Keep your eyes out. We'll be announcing our next year's season soon to come. Have a wonderful rest of the summer. Thank you.